Imagine a powerful king, a ruler of Egypt, a pharaoh with unimaginable wealth and influence. Yet his name was carved out, smashed, buried, and wiped from every temple wall. For thousands of years, it was as if he never existed. But the sands of Egypt never forget. And what they finally revealed changed history forever. Today we uncover the chilling story of Akhenaten, the pharaoh whose ideas were so shocking, so dangerous, and so revolutionary that Egypt tried to erase him from history. This is not just an ancient mystery. It's a story about power, belief, rebellion, and the struggle between tradition and radical change. A story that shows how one leader can attempt to reshape an entire civilization and how that civilization can fight back. It began during Egypt's golden age, the 18th dynasty, a time of wealth, stability, and breathtaking power. Temples towered over the Nile. Priests controlled enormous riches, and pharaohs were seen as living gods. Akhenaten was born into this world of splendor. His father, Amenhotep III, ruled during one of the most prosperous periods in Egyptian history. The people worshipped a vast collection of gods: Ra, Amun, Osiris, Isis, and dozens more. The priests of Amun especially were so influential that some believed they rivaled the pharaoh himself. Inside the palace, the young prince walked marble halls lit by flickering oil lamps. He heard the rhythmic chants of the priests echoing from distant temples. He saw statues of God staring down at him with stone eyes. But something within him felt different. He was quiet, reserved, deeply spiritual. And unlike other princes, he didn't seem interested in war or politics. His fascination was focused on something else. In the golden light of the Egyptian sunrise, he saw something sacred, not in idols, not in temples, but in the sun itself. When his father died, Akhenaten took the throne. The court watched closely. The priests whispered among themselves. Would this unusual prince become a traditional king? At first, Akhenaten appeared normal. He performed ceremonies, honored the gods, and followed royal customs. But underneath this calm surface, a storm was building. He began speaking more and more about a single divine power. Not a god with a human face, not a god carved in stone, but the Aten, the sun disk, the giver of life. Some thought it was poetic. Others thought it was strange. The priests of Amun thought it was dangerous. Soon, Akhenaten made a decision that would shake Egypt to its core. In a dramatic and unprecedented move, Akhenaten announced that Egypt would worship only one god, the Aten. Not dozens, not hundreds, just one. His voice echoed through the palace halls. His words stunned the royal court. Never in Egypt's entire history had a pharaoh dared to do this. Temples of Amun and other gods began to close. Statues were pulled down. Priests were stripped of power. The great city of Thebes trembled with fear and anger. Families who had prayed to the same gods for generations felt lost, as if their spiritual foundations had been shattered. But Akhenaten was not finished. He declared himself the sole representative of this new god on earth. In his vision, the Aten did not need temples filled with wealth. It needed sunlight, open courtyards, and devotion straight from the heart. This was more than a religious reform. It was a revolution. And revolutions create enemies. Facing enormous resistance in Thebes, Akhenaten made a dramatic choice. He abandoned the ancient capital altogether. In the middle of the desert, in a place no city had ever stood, he declared that the Aten had chosen a new home. He called it Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. Imagine the scene, the sun blazing over endless dunes, thousands of workers carving stone, palaces rising from the sand, and Akhenaten walking among them, envisioning a future no one else could see. This city was unlike anything Egypt had ever built. Open temples with no roofs, so sunlight could pour in. Walls covered with scenes of the royal family worshiping the Aten. And at the center, Akhenaten, his queen Nefertiti, and their daughters stood bathed in golden light. The artwork from this time is striking. The royal family is shown with elongated faces, slender limbs, and rounded bodies. Some say it was symbolic, meant to show that the royal family was blessed, touched by the sun. Others think it reflects a real physical difference. But one thing is clear: Akhenaten had broken every rule of tradition. He was no longer just a king. He had become something closer to a prophet. While Akhenaten focused on his spiritual revolution, Egypt's enemies began to circle like vultures. Foreign territories that had once respected Egyptian power now sensed weakness. Allies sent desperate letters begging for help, messages carved into clay tablets pleading, "Please send troops, please send gold, we are being attacked." But Akhenaten seemed uninterested in war. He did not ride into battle like past pharaohs. He did not strengthen Egypt's borders. Instead, he prayed to the Aten, wrote hymns, and spent time with his family in the sunlight of his new city. Inside the palace walls, life was peaceful. But outside, Egypt was slowly tearing at the seams. Trade routes faltered, the military weakened, starvation crept toward villages, and the priests, stripped of power, waited for their chance to strike back. As Akhenaten's power weakened, tragedy struck the royal family. Some of his daughters died young. Nefertiti disappeared from records. Whether from death, political struggle, or a separate ruling role remains a mystery. And Akhenaten himself grew increasingly isolated. The once vibrant city of Akhetaten began to feel like a ghostly dream in the desert, a place built on hope, now sinking under its own weight. After 17 years on the throne, Akhenaten died, but Egypt was not ready to mourn him. The moment he was gone, the old power structure moved swiftly. His son, Tutankhaten, later known as Tutankhamen, was placed on the throne, likely under the influence of priests and generals. The boy king's advisors pressured him to reverse everything his father had done. Temples to the old gods reopened, the capital moved back to Thebes, and the priests of Amun returned to glory. But to fully restore Egypt, they believed something else had to happen. Akhenaten's memory had to be destroyed. What followed was one of the most aggressive erasures in ancient history. Stonemasons traveled from temple to temple, city to city, chipping his name from the walls. Chipping, scraping, hammering, day after day. His statues were smashed. His city was abandoned, left to crumble under sand and wind. And even the royal tombs were desecrated. Akhenaten's body vanished, lost forever. For the people of Egypt, he became known as the heretic, the rebel, the king who betrayed the gods. And for more than 3,000 years, Akhenaten was gone. Not forgotten, but erased. Then, in the late 19th century, archaeologists digging in the desert uncovered something astonishing. They found strange buildings, oddly shaped statues, fragments of art unlike anything in Egyptian history. The lost city of Akhetaten, Akhenaten's dream, was rising from the sand. As more discoveries were made, the truth began to surface. A forgotten pharaoh had once dared to reshape the entire country. His hymn to the Aten, preserved on ancient walls, contained ideas that sounded remarkably like early monotheism. Scholars were stunned. Religions across the world were re-examined. And suddenly, Akhenaten transformed from a villain